I have almost 500 comments on my video, This is Not Luxury. And I received a comment recently on my video where I talk about paying off my new to me Mini Cooper, and it really stood out and made quite an impact. Selling a vast amount of my luxury collection wasn't just about recouping some of the money that I spent on it. It was emotional. I started buying designer items in the 90s, right after my first real corporate paycheck, working for one of the big five accounting firms. And it became part of my identity. So letting go hasn't been easy. Hi, I'm Nikki. Welcome to La Paz Bound. So for me to convey the emotional aspect of parting with a good chunk of my designer items and my luxury car, I need to take you back to when I was a teenager. So my mom was a single parent. She worked two jobs during my younger years, and she worked hard to put herself through cosmetology school. My stepfather entered my life when I was 9, and he raised me as his own. And I'm truly grateful to have had a childhood that was filled with love and hardworking parents who made sure that I was always clothed and fed. We lived a comfortable life. Each summer we drove to Pennsylvania for a vacation. We went out to eat occasionally, and I even had a small allowance. I was a happy kid who loved chatting out the window to my friend Christy, who was my age and she lived next door. And to this day, we still remain great friends. You can see Christy and my other childhood friend Sharon and I belting out the Smiths in a vlog that I'll link. It wasn't until around middle or high school where I saw some of my friends live differently. Their houses were bigger, they were in gated communities, their clothes had labels on them like Benetton, Calvin Klein, and Jordache. They didn't just have cars, they had BMWs. And then there was John Hughes, who started making movies that focused on the socio-economic dichotomy of what it was like to grow up as a teenager in the 80s. Molly Ringwald, she made her own clothes from thrifted and secondhand items. She drove a dented old but really cute VW Carmen Ghia, while the Richies drove the new BMWs in Pretty in Pink. But it was a theme that John Hughes repeated in several of his movies that made an impression on 14-year-old Nikki. My stepfather worked in fine jewelry for many years in one of the anchor stores in the mall. And one of the perks that he had was majorly discounted jewelry like Movado, Gucci, and Tag watches. I had, and still to this day have, my Gucci watches from the 80s that were either gifted or I bought at a very low cost from him when I started making money from my full-time jobs in my early 20s. Having this first Gucci watch with the interchangeable bezels, it made me feel special and unique. It made me feel like I was one of the Richies and was worthy of hanging with them. Getting an education and going to college was never a question in my household growing up. My parents expected me to make good grades and go on to college, which I did. I worked two jobs in college to be able to afford books and my $104 car payment on my 1988 VW Fox. For me, college was never about the social aspect. I didn't join a sorority. I worked on and off campus in my free time. I occasionally went to Orlando to see Christy at UCF and partied over there. But mostly college was a means to an end, and that end was money. Money to buy the things that made me feel special. Getting that 4-year degree so that I could have money to afford the things that I wanted in life that made me stand out from most people. I graduated in 1994 with a BA in English literature, and I got a job almost immediately where I traveled the United States training RV and boat dealerships on how to format their finance and insurance forms with this new accounting software. I saw customers coming in for delivery on lavish boats and big rig RVs. Sometimes I got to go out on these boats and cruise around Lake Michigan or get behind the wheel of a Class A RV on a remote road in Alabama. I got to see and experience a lot of new things while working for that company. Hair products that I bought in Beverly Hills that Jennifer Aniston, she spoke about in the magazine In Style. Do you remember that magazine? You have to remember that it wasn't until 1996 before I discovered the internet And it wasn't until probably 1998, 99 before I discovered online shopping through eBay. I would travel to Seattle, to Chicago, and I'd be exposed to these humongous malls with anchor stores like Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, and Saks. We didn't have these stores in Tampa Bay area until much later, and Tampa lost Saks Fifth Avenue several years ago. So the closest one is either in Orlando or you have to go to Sarasota. And then Sex and the City premiered. It was my first glimpse beyond Gucci and Prada. I saw Charlotte carrying Chanel handbags and living on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And who can forget Samantha trying to skirt around that 4-year waiting list for that red Hermès Birkin? These sexy, single, and successful women, they portrayed a life of luxury, and I wanted to be a part of it. After Sex and the City came Lipstick Jungle and then Girls. Don and I were ready to leave Florida and live in or near a big city in 2007. We first tried finding jobs in Chicago, which is my favorite US city. The job market was a lot tougher there than on the East Coast. I landed a job in Connecticut, and Don got a job there too about 3 months later. We were close to New York City, only an hour and a half trip on the Metro North train, and we went as often as we could. I also started blogging around this time and following other bloggers. Documenting your life on YouTube was still relatively new at that time, and I wasn't comfortable or confident enough to be on camera. I didn't have much success blogging, but it's when I really started racking up debt on designer items, as well as on fast fashion. I felt compelled to have a new piece of clothing to show on my blog each week, and to try and keep up with other bloggers. It was the beginning of bloggers turning into influencers who were getting paid to promote an item or were getting freebies, and I just couldn't keep up with that. Every time I would buy myself something with a designer label, I thought, I'm different now. I'm part of a select group of people that have these special items. And that thought process and false sense of self-esteem generated through bags and shoes, it carried with me even to this day. And it has been so difficult to break free of that mindset. It's probably what is keeping me from parting with all of my designer items, because to me, it means I part with my identity as well. It's why it took me so long to get rid of my Mercedes. My identity was so ingrained in having nice things that I couldn't really afford. And now that I don't have them, I feel like I've taken a step back in what I perceived all these years as being successful. I equated success with having nice things that also came with debt. And even though my Mini Cooper is all mine, I got the title in the mail over the weekend, I still can't get used to the thought of having a car without a car payment. It feels really foreign to me. My life of constant debt just felt normal. So I'm entering a new phase at almost 54, a phase that feels very weird to me, a phase that I know I need to enter to secure our financial future. And it's going to take time, and I may slip and buy a bag or a pair of shoes to get that old sense of false identity back. I'm trying to break a 3-decade-long habit, and that's not easy. One of the things I'm doing, and this is going to sound so millennial or Gen Z, is that I'm trying to trade stuff for experiences. I recently created a new playlist on my channel called Nikki's Florida Favorites. I've lived in Florida almost my entire life. I was born here. And I have some favorite places that I want to share with you. Places that have history and mean something to me. Florida is a huge state. Donna and I keep talking about places within Florida that neither one of us has visited. Since I'm still paying down debt, I'm down to $23,924. Just a few months ago, it was $37,000. But since I'm still paying down debt, I'm going to try and focus on places that don't break the bank and don't get me further into debt. A lesson I wish I had learned in my 30s when I was blogging. My first video in this new playlist posted last week on Lithia Springs. It's a special county park that I have been visiting since the 90s. So go check out that video. My channel now also has tiered memberships where you can get early access to my videos and special shout outs, as well as make suggestions on what type of future videos you'd like me to make. I'll leave a link to the memberships in case you're interested in joining. and helping my channel to continue to grow. I'm close to reaching 1,000 subscribers and would really appreciate it if you haven't already to subscribe to my channel so I can continue to branch out and bring you new content each week. As always, thank you for watching my videos. It really does mean a lot to me. Until next time, hasta luego, my friends.